Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk, guys. We are recording here on DSM Media's NFL Turf Talk YouTube channel. So do yourselves a favor, do us a favor. This is our last pre-recorded show before we get into all of our live streams all season long with you guys on Thursdays and Sundays throughout the regular season. Do yourselves a favor, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Help us grow the our account, and it's the best spot for you guys to be involved with us throughout each and every one of our shows, specifically the live streams we're going to be doing, because for some reason through StreamYard, through Twitter, through Facebook, we can't see any of your comments. So do yourself a favor, like I said, subscribe. The AFC and NFC East breakdowns are coming your way, and then we'll be live tonight at around 6 p.m. getting you ready for Ravens Chiefs to kick off the 2024 NFL season. We've officially made it. We're going to be giving you guys our Super Bowl and playoff predictions, our player award predictions, our top 10 power rankings. We're going to wrap up our top 10 player position rankings tonight, and we'll get all that out for you guys and join the conversation. Subscribe, my man Scotty. We get to our own division, man. We always wrap up every year, so it's no different this summer, wrapping up with the NFC East. Excited to talk a little bit more about our birds, but another interesting division across the conference as well. When you get into the Bills and the Jets and Miami, I'll stop the bus right there. I'm not going to add a fourth team to that little conversation, but it's going to be a fun one, man. What's going on?
Yes, sir. It's going to be a fun one, man. We got the two Eastern divisions. That's closest to home for us, so it hits a little bit different, but no, it should be fun, man, to talk about these two divisions. One's a little bit more interesting than the other to me. I'm a little biased with one of these divisions, so it is interesting. Nonetheless, we'll see how this goes. But yeah, I'm happy to be here with you, man. This is a day filled with football. This is going to be our second episode of the day. And then, of course, we got the live show coming out later. Out of three.
Busy day.
So we're going hard. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning with, our regular morning show, and then Eagles pregame. And then we'll get to Sunday. We have the whole Sunday slate, too. So football's back, man. The content's going to keep coming, and I'm not too upset about it. So happy to be here with you, my man. Where do you want to start with these two divisions, though?
Start right here, man, because I'm tired of the wait. I'm tired of not talking.
Yeah, let's get it out the way.
All the things that the Eagles did this offseason, the things the Cowboys neglected to do. Jaden Daniels now in the division. Malik Neighbors now in the division. Danny Dimes, will he keep his job? Can Washington compete for a playoff spot at all as a wild card? A lot to discuss, man.
Yeah.
But one thing remains true for me from this time last year and this time the year before, and I don't care that it didn't work out our way this past season, but that is the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFC East. Howie Roseman and company did a tremendous job over this offseason, man, bolstering the defense, getting younger. I think, I think the average age specifically on defense for this roster is around 25. It's one of the youngest rosters in the league now, but he has a good mix of talent, of leadership, of veteran presence, of championship pedigree, as well as that youth movement, right? He goes out, he brings back a very critical piece in the secondary from 2 years ago, that Super Bowl year, in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, bringing some physicality to the defensive side of the ball. They move on from the drama of Hassan Reddick, the only player to still not report to his respective camp this summer with the New York Jets. We'll talk about them in a few moments as well, but he moves on from him, brings in a guy in Bryce Huff. He goes to the draft. He drafts Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. He moves up in the second round with Washington, gets Cooper DeJean, brings in Devin White, obviously not traveling with the team right now, brings in Zach Bond, Isaiah Rodgers reinstated. This defense is newly bolstered. Vic Fangio's in charge. And then on the offense, it's looking the same. No Jason Kelsey. I know it hurts, but three very important pieces, the newly acquired and traded for Jahan Dotson, solidifying that slot receiver role. Kellen Moore calling plays, not Brian Johnson. And, just a guy that used to play in an ugly blue uniform just a year ago, number 26, former Penn State and Indy line. Oh, that's right, one of the best running backs in the world. It now joins Jalen Hurts in his backfield and Saquon Barkley. The Eagles had maybe the busiest offseason of any team in the National Football League. Meanwhile, their counterparts did a lot of nothing this offseason, Scotty. So for me, It is clear who the best team on paper. A lot can change. Injuries will happen to everybody. A lot will go on through the first couple months of the season. But on paper, right now, today, as we kick off this season, the Philadelphia Eagles, to me, are the runaway team with the NFC East.
Yeah, man, I tend to agree with you. Obviously, I know we're a little biased here, but I think anybody with a brain and eyes that look at this team on paper can understand this is the most intimidating, the biggest threat, arguably the biggest threat in the NFC. I know there's a lot of people shying away from it because of the collapse that happened last year, but there was so much that was built into that. Anything from injuries to coaching problems, all of the above, chemistry, so on and so forth. I think what they did this offseason was, like you said, a little bit of an overhaul, especially on the defensive side of things, and just clearing out all of that extra noise and getting on the same page. You see Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni riding around in golf carts together, having fun, laughing, put all of the toxicity to bed for now. And that's all we can ask for, is to put it to bed for now. And if it comes back up during the season, we'll have to address it. And we'll have maybe a better idea of where it's coming from if it happens again this year, right? So as of right now, I think the Eagles are coming in with a clean slate in that aspect of things. But you mentioned all of the additions. You hit them all on the head. I'm not going to sit here and list them again. The only other team in the division that I think got better, and they did do a little bit of an overhaul, maybe to a lesser extent, if that makes sense. Washington Commanders. They went out. They tried to make their team better. I'll give them that. Jaden Daniels, he should be he coming out of college. He looks like a stud, right? The rumors around camp is that he's looked really good with that offense. He is a guy that can do it all, and that does make their offense interesting from that aspect. You had Austin Eckler, Olamide Zaccheaus, we're familiar with, Zach Ertz, former Eagle, Bobby Wagner, obviously a legendary Hall of Fame linebacker, and Jeremy Chin, a guy that I tended to like him down in Carolina. I thought maybe the Eagles would take a stab at him. They go out, they get somebody better. And to that point, that's what I mean. Like the Commanders, they went out, they addressed some things, but did they address them to the level of the Eagles? No, not really. The Eagles go out, they get Saquon Barkley.
Well, and especially
elevation of Austin Eckler.
They're already so far behind the 8 ball of where the Eagles
in
were
the first place.
The Eagles are, trying to compete for the NFC Championship game for a Super Bowl appearance. The Commanders are just trying to sneak into a playoff spot if they can win more than 7 games in a season.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So I think they tried to get better. I do like a lot of those moves I just named from them. I do like them for them. I just don't think that they are ready just yet. Now, let me throw this to you, though. This is something interesting because we talked about the Giants a little bit. I mean, we could talk about them a little bit later. But the Dallas Cowboys, there's not too much to talk about because they didn't do much this offseason. And so to that point, man, like, from your perspective here, if Jaden Daniels comes out and is a legit starting quarterback, if he's playing some good football for the Commanders, maybe up there with Caleb Williams for Rookie of the Year, right? He's the guy I look to right beside Caleb Williams. It would have to take something for Caleb Williams to maybe get injured or something for him to lose Rookie of the Year. But I think that Jaden Daniels will – is it Jaden or Jalen? Am I saying that right? Jaden. Okay, I'm hearing Jaden Reed. I'm thinking about the Packers and shit. Nonetheless, Jalen Daniels, I do think he's going to be up next right after Caleb Williams for that conversation. If he can play some good football, can they compete with Dallas for that number 2 spot? A lot of people think Dallas is going to compete with the Eagles. Is there competition below them, rather?
Dallas is so confusing to me, man, because I do agree. Washington was much busier this offseason. They're at least attempting to make themselves better, right? And to build year after year. And Jaden Daniels is a special athlete. Now, can he do the job at this level? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, we have to wait and see.
But on another note, Terry McLaurin finally kind of gets a quarterback that might be able to get him the ball, and
Something
Terry
fun.
McLaurin is just a consistent 1,000-yard receiver every year, so might have some help there. Austin Eckler brought over from LA. What's he have left in the tank? They definitely improved their roster, whereas the Cowboys didn't. It's just how much better were the Cowboys already than Washington. But I do agree. I think Dallas is in this weird world where they're just going to be better than Washington. I think Dallas, even though they lose their guy in Dan Quinn, they're still going to be stellar versus who they need to be stellar against in the regular season. Like, we know when the lights get their brightest, they're going to get 46 hung on them, right? But when they're beating up on bad teams, when they're playing the Giants, when they're playing the Saints, if they play, I don't know if they play the Saints, but you get my point. When they're playing the Panthers and those kind of teams, they're going to beat the shit out of them. They're going to have this crazy ass point differential, whatever. The issue with Dallas, man, is I just don't view them in the Eagles class right now. And that really hasn't been a conversation for, maybe ever. Like, even when the Eagles won a Super Bowl, even when the Eagles went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago, it's a divisional race. And we know the talent that the Cowboys have had. And going to Jerry World on Sunday Night Football was always such a big matchup. I mean, Christ, Jalen Hurts' rookie year, we go in there on Monday Night Football week 2 or 3. He looks like a deer in headlights. We don't know if we have our guy. Dak looks like he's the future of the division. Like, the Cowboys are always normally right there or better than us. But Jerry Jones, I don't know what he's attempting to do, man. He's making comments about what the Eagles are doing. The Cowboys are all in, but they're not wagering against their future. I mean, Scotty, bro, they lost what? 2 offensive linemen, really did nothing to replace them. You lose Tony Pollard. His big move offensively was to bring back the guy they got rid of for Tony Pollard a few years ago in Ezekiel Elliott, who looks to have nothing left in the tank. Is Dalvin Cook a Cowboy? I don't know. He's not on their depth chart right now on their page, but evidently they signed him. They pay CeeDee Lamb. Their number 2 is now fucking 38-year-old Brandon Cooks at this point. I mean, dude, they've lost offensively in the trenches. They lost Tony Pollard. They have no wide receiver 2. They have no wide receiver 3. They're banged up. Defensively, they still got the talent. They added Eric Kendricks to it. You lost the mastermind behind the defense in Dan Quinn that gave them some toughness, that gave them a personality. I don't view them in the Eagles stratosphere, although I do view them possibly still in that middle ground where they are 2 or 3 games better than the Washington Commanders and much better than the New York Giants, but not quite competing for a division title this year. I said this to you the other day, man, on the Faithful Fanatics show. I know it's tough. It's tough against the Commanders. It's tough against any division rival to go and sweep teams, right? This is the year I point to as an Eagles fan where I go, bury them. Put this team away. This has all the makings of you going to Jerry World, getting that win earlier in the season, midway through the season, and then winning at the Link later on, because you're just that much more talented than this football team right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I do wonder, as we're saying it out loud there, as I listen to you say that out loud out of your mouth, it makes me wonder if that, ultimately does come with pressure, and if these players will be fazed by that pressure that comes with being the favorite. Now, the tricky thing here is that in our eyes, it's that way.
Right.
But in the public perception, they're not really the favorite in a sense. There's professional analysts out there that think the Cowboys are still right there, ready to compete, if not win the division. So with all that being said, while we sit here, it feels like we're, favoring the Eagles, and we are, obviously. I think they are the most talented team in the division. I don't think it's particularly close, but I get it. Previous years, the collapse last year, the coaching issues, but you bring in a Hall of Famer in Vic Fangio, you bring in Kellen Moore. These are 2 of the best at what they do in the NFL these days. So I think people are almost underestimating what competent coaching could
Yep.
do for a team as
Yeah,
talented as the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's what people are underestimating here.
I
Too
agree,
much
man.
focus about, Jalen Hurts and his mentality and his leadership, all of this. It's all about putting it all together, everybody fitting the way they're supposed to, and putting the egos aside. And that's just something they weren't able to do last year. But I think that they have the right pieces, the right game plans to avoid these type of situations this year.
I mean, we just spent 20 minutes on the previous show that we recorded hating on Brock Purdy, right? And I would ask those people to lay out why and articulate why you think Brock Purdy is this top 3 quarterback in the NFC overall.
Yeah.
And we laid out how he's probably the 8th or 9th or 10th best in the NFC. It's the same thing here, man. Like, yeah, I understand we spent the first 12 to 15 minutes of this segment just hoisting up the Lombardi for the Eagles over here and hating on the Cowboys. And that's no surprise, right?
Yeah.
But I'll put the bias aside if others would put the bias aside and try to lay out to me how the Eagles aren't the best team in this division on paper right now. Like try so find me the areas on Dallas Cowboys, specifically the offensive side of the ball, where they're better than the Eagles. Defensively, do they have more talent? Yeah, probably. I mean, they have a top 2 to 3 defensive player in the world in Micah Parsons, right? And when you start with that, okay, great. But, the Eagles are rebuilt defensively. I'll still give the Cowboys the edge as of right now. But offensively, it's not close. Coaching-wise, it's not close. Like, that's the thing, man. All this heat's coming on Nick Sirianni right now. And I'm seeing on ESPN that Sirianni needs to shut up and coach for his life and da-da-da and block out the noise. Well, then what if his seat is hot, what's the temperature of Mike McCarthy's seat? Because if Mike McCarthy does not win a division, if Mike McCarthy gets kicked out in a wild card round again, there's no way his fat ass has a job anymore, right?
Yeah, no, he might be out the door already for all we know. Like the way Jerry Jones be acting, man. I'm with you, brother. Like I don't know. I look at this defense. I know what they can do. Like we've seen them in the past. They have a lot of the same players returning. The pass rush is obviously the strong suit, but the key thing here, man, if Jalen Carter is what we think he is, then he will. I'm not saying that he'll reach a level of Micah Parsons. That's an incredible level. Micah Parsons is an incredible talent as far as what he brings to a defensive unit. But if Jalen Carter can bring anything close to that type of disruption to our defensive line, we're going to be a really hard defense to deal with because I get it. It's all hypothetical. It's all about, thinking about hypothetical fits back there in that secondary with Quinyon and Isaiah Rodgers and Cooper DeJean, these guys that haven't played in the NFL or, in Rodgers' case, hasn't played in a year or so. I look at these guys. Isaiah Rodgers, sure, he's a question mark, but we know the talent that he was working with coming out of that. That's why the Eagles held on to him through his suspension after the Colts let him go for the gambling suspension. Like, because he brings that level of talent. And then you talk about going out and then also drafting the best talent available at the corner position in Quinyon Mitchell, who's looking to start off top, already speaks to what he brings to the team himself. Cooper DeJean, the Swiss Army knife that you get, basically should have been a first-round pick, drops for whatever reason. And then you add CGJ, who is just he's like the life. He's the life of the secondary. He's the guy that's going to bring the house, right? Like he's the guy that's going to deliver the hit. He's the guy that's going to go and grab 4, 5, 6 interceptions this season, be a ball hawk for this defense. And it's exactly what they were missing, man. That secondary, I don't know. Like, I remember, like, the Troy Vincents back in the day, like, that secondary with Brian Dawkins and, oh, my God, what's the one dude's name? It's slipping my mind. I'm not going to get back into history.
Sheldon Brown and Lito Shepherd?
Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepherd. Like, I'm thinking of those types of days of, like, having a good opportunistic secondary that can force turnovers and specifically get interceptions. That's something we've been lacking for so long on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm excited about what this defense can do. I think the biggest thing is Jalen Carter. He has to live up to what he is supposed to be.
I agree,
right?
bro.
Like
He's got to
that
take
top
that
10
step.
draft
I
pick.
mean, look, Scotty, like we talk about all the time with him throughout the summer and playing this hypothetical game. And don't get me wrong, he showed big time flashes last year. And
Absolutely.
you hear the way the offensive line talks about him, like on
Yeah.
like I've heard Lane, I've heard Kelsey, I've heard Mailata talk about how strong and physical and quick he is, and how smart he is, and how he's calling out what they're going to do at the line of scrimmage and everything. That's what we need, because when we moved up to get him inside the top 10 just over 2 years ago now, well, just over a year ago, you get my point, 2 years ago draft.
Yeah.
He was talked about like the best football player in the draft class.
Yeah.
That's what I need you to be like. Just how Michael Parsons was the best defensive player, the best football player.
He needs to be that for us.
You're different, right? You are a defensive tackle. You're not as in great shape. Your hand in the dirt, going against nose center, stuff like that. You're not
might
lining
not
up
be double-digit sacks,
right? You're not 6'3", 2 whatever, fast as shit. I get you. You impact the game in different ways, right? But I've seen what an Aaron Donald can look like. I've seen what a Fletcher Cox can look like. I've seen what big-time defensive tackles can do to games and be game wreckers. And that's exactly what you need to be. Now, when you talk about the secondary, man, I agree. This is all hypothetical. We are just wishing and hoping and praying at this point, because we need it. We need the secondary to stay healthy and be up to par for this defense to be what we want it to be. But you mentioned the depth, and the way I'm looking at it right now, man, is my expectations of Quinyon Mitchell, and I absolutely love. Did you see the reports that he might play every snap for them? Like, he is ready to outside, inside, Nick, slot, nickel, whatever you need him to be. He's going to be on the football field. Cooper DeJean is not starting, but he's going to be playing in this secondary. You have an Isaiah Rodgers, who you talked about. Keely Ringo had a great camp. You bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You have a Sidney Brown coming back off an injury who played well last year. And all that's new and that's fun.
James Bradbury.
All of that helps out an already captain of this defense in Darius Slay.
Yeah.
Because from how bad this defense was, who takes the biggest hit?
Yeah.
Well, the number one guy, the guy that's supposed to show up. And when he's not showing up and the others aren't, and how ugly it looks, well, guess what? Maybe him, a little bit older into his career now, a captain yet again, maybe he has a pick six. Maybe he has 3-4 interceptions this year and kind of revives his career here in Philly a little bit, because he's got help all around him. He's not on an island. He's not forced to play hero ball in a fucking Matt Patricia led secondary late in the season. So I'm excited for this defense, man. And I do agree. When I'm only giving the Cowboys the edge because of where we left off, right? How we saw the Eagles play versus the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys gave up like 30 plus points on defense in their playoff game. Whatever. I'm not even going to get into that. But on paper, I'll give them the edge. That does not mean they're going to be the better defense this year.
Yeah.
And if I don't know that you are for sure going to be a much better defense than the Eagles, and you are lacking severely on the offensive side of the ball from the Eagles, there's no way I'm putting you in the same class.
Yeah.
So
no, I tend to agree with you, man. You look at that secondary specifically. I loved your point about Darius Slay, and I think another point to look at here is that you move James Bradbury to safety. Now, he's injured. He's not in the picture right now, regardless. I think I even heard that he might go on IR for a little bit before he comes back. So he's not in the near future right now, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on how you look at depth or if he would have started or not. I don't think he would have. But nonetheless, you look at this situation with Darius Slay, you don't have that weak-ass link on the other side of him now where, they can just sit there and attack James Bradbury the entire game like San Fran did, right? Completely expose this guy. Seattle did, like so on and so forth. Everybody we ran into would just sit there and pick on James Bradbury. Well, now if you have Quinyon Mitchell holding his own to an extent, if you have Isaiah Rodgers holding his own to an extent on the other side, maybe they do, like you said, go after Slay a little bit. Maybe he has an opportunity to make those big plays that he's known for right now, right? When you can just sit there and ignore one side of the field because you have a good corner over there, it eliminates him from the game in a sense, which can be good and be
Have
bad. There's a balance.
Gardner Johnson behind you lurking, bro, or Fangio. I promise you,
CJ can go anywhere on the defense.
He's going to bring him down in the box.
Oh yeah. He's going to play slot sometimes.
Bro, last year, honestly, Scotty, like what? Reed Blankenship was your number one safety.
We got Kevin Byard, and that dude was like beyond washed.
No, or it just didn't work in that system. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, he had
slow to the ball,
an interception
whatever.
in the end zone at Arrowhead on Monday Night Football, and that's the only play he made in an Eagles.
It's the only one I remember.
So yeah, man, just having all those pieces back, I can't wait for tomorrow night, bro, just to see it all again, because we didn't see any of it in the regular season. We saw no one on offense. You saw a little bit of Mitchell, you saw a little bit of, but you didn't see the veterans play. So I'm super, super excited.
I want to see what this pass rush is on. That's like one of the bigger things. That defense as a whole, though, I want to see what they're on, because I do think I know there's. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because this is an Eagles space. I was going to go somewhere else with it.
Oh, it's okay, because I know I'm just getting ahead of myself with the Packers and the matchup tomorrow. But I do think the Eagles are more well built to play a team like the Packers than they were last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like tomorrow.
Absolutely, because anytime you got into these types of matchups, you and I were talking about the NFC West, and you were talking about the Rams coming to town, or when you play the Lions, it's like if those teams were to come last year with the way this defense was built and the way they were playing, you were assuming what? We have to win.
Have to score 30. Yeah, 30 plus, like the Bills game.
Hopefully, like I want a physical, I want an imposing
punch you in the mouth
defense, tough type of style of defense out there this year. So I do agree, man. Just to get the bottom feeder of this division in the conversation before we move on to the AFC here, the New York Giants. I have one simple question. Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Cardinals was the big name. I got him in fantasy. I'm super stoked. But Malik Neighbors is right there as well. When it comes to that conversation, offensive rookie of the year conversation, like you were mentioning with Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. My question for you is, how many weeks into the season before we get our first Malik Neighbors freak out, OBJ versus old Eli Manning style, chewing Daniel Jones a new ass on the sideline type of freak out? How many weeks in? How many throws is Daniel Jones going to miss? How many times Daniel Jones is going to have his head turned the wrong way while Malik Neighbors is streaking down the slot for a wide open walking touchdown? How long until we get the drama unfolding in the Big Apple?
I'm gonna give it 2 to 3 weeks, right?
All right, first month.
They play the Vikings. They play the Vikings in New York week 1. Who the hell is playing quarterback for the Vikings? So they should win that game. They should. It's Daniel Jones. They should. Week 2, they head to DC, take on the Commanders.
It's a winnable-ish game.
It's winnable-ish, right? Maybe a game where Neighbors can still get the ball, right? Yeah. But then week 3, they head to Cleveland, and that's where shit's going to get a little intense. Maybe that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Then the next week, they come back home and play Dallas, and that's where it really starts to like unwrap. How many
turnovers does Daniel Jones have in those 2 weeks combined?
Woo! Those 2 weeks combined.
Total. I'm talking hit from behind, strip sack.
5.
I'm talking
5. 5. How do we get to 5?
I think it's probably
1 interception in one game, 2 interceptions in another game, and then 1 fumble in one game, 2 fumbles in the other. That's how I'll go with that. 3 fumbles and 3 interceptions for Daniel Jones in those 2 games. Then they go on the road and play in Seattle, who has a pretty good duo at corner as well.
Yeah, and one of the loudest stadiums
in the
country.
Yeah. And then after that, the Bengals, and then after that, the Eagles, and then after that, the Steelers. So I think week 3 is when that downhill spiral begins, my man, because after week 3, bro, it's not great. I mean, like I said, the Browns, Cowboys, Seahawks, Bengals, Eagles, Steelers in a row. That's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row that I would pencil them in to lose. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long that takes, man.
I feel bad. Like, if they didn't get rid of McKinney either, like, dude, I'm looking at their defense, and they go out and get Brian Burns, and they put him next to Dexter Lawrence, excuse me. They have
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau, and they have Bobby Okereke at linebacker, and they have some pieces in the front seven, man. And then you get secondary. I want to know how many passing yards.
Secondary. Yeah.
They have Deontay Banks, Dane Belton, Jason Pinnock, and Cordell Flott on the outside. Who in the blue hell are three of those four dudes?
So Deontay Banks is the rookie, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Or is he?
I don't know, but he's the only name I know.
Yeah, he's a rookie, so maybe he is good. Adoree Jackson is the only other guy I know in their secondary.
Yeah, except they have him slotted as their third string corner on their depth chart.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not looking at the depth chart.
Yeah.
They picked up did they have Isaiah Simmons before?
Because here's the thing, wasn't Adoree Jackson so bad when he came in to play for them last year?
He was, so that would make sense as to why he fell down that list. You could argue, though, to your point, like you brought up Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau was a double-digit sack guy last year. They have arguably the best pass rush in a sense, right? Like the Cowboys have obviously Micah and oh my God, what's Lawrence? What's his first name? DeMarcus. I didn't want to say Dexter. I already knew. Yeah, DeMarcus Lawrence. So they got a nice duo there in Dallas, but I mean the Giants are in that combo. It's that secondary that brings them down to earth, though, for sure. But yeah, looking at the Giants' schedule, that looks hard, right? Like that 6-game stretch I told you. Something I wanted to point out about the Cowboys, though, when we were talking about them, they get the number 1 seed schedule of our division, luckily. So they get the Browns, the Saints, the Ravens, the Giants, the Steelers, the Lions, the 49ers, the Falcons, the Eagles, Texans, Commanders, Bengals, Bucks, and the Eagles. That's the end of the rough part. But I mean, that's all season. So
I mean, brother, I didn't look at it. I'm glad you brought this to my attention. They're on the road for a lot of these games too. They're at Cleveland, they're at Pittsburgh, they're at San Fran, they're at Atlanta.
Fuck them.
Like, again, you're gonna have to play uberly talented offenses mixed with tough ass defenses. And what you did or lack thereof this offseason, you don't dude, the Cowboys don't have the talent to keep up anymore is what I'm getting at. And listen, 2 years ago when Dak led the league in interceptions, we poked a lot of fun at it. Last year, he reeled it back, and Dak Prescott is going to throw for over 4,000 yards. He's going to throw for 30-plus touchdowns. And before, he was able, for the most part, most seasons, to keep the turnovers down. With the lack of help, bro, and the amount of times they're going to have to throw the football per game, you're going to – I don't know what that ratio looks like. Does he throw 12-plus interceptions again this year? Like, what did he throw 2 years ago? Like 16 or 17 when he led the league?
I would have to look really quick here.
But you get my point? Like, for me, those numbers are just going to go up.
Let's see here. So the year before last, he had 15 interceptions, so 23 and 15.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So
and then what was he last year?
36 and 9. So he had a great season last year, ultimately, like you said.
But now you have Ezekiel Elliott and Brandon Cooks as 2/3 of your first 3 options.
And that's what I was going to ask you is, like, when you look at it from that standpoint, I want to pull up the whole list of teams here. Where does that rushing attack rank in the NFL?
Scotty, it's bad, dude. I mean, that's a great question, especially with the losses to the offensive line. Let's just run through it before we move over to the AFC. All right, Baltimore, yes or no? No, they're not better than Baltimore.
No, they're not better.
No, Cleveland, no. Pittsburgh, no. Pittsburgh will be able to run the ball. Cincinnati, I don't know. Zach Moss. At this point,
to be fair, I would probably take Zach Moss over Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he was
Absolutely.
better for Indy last year than what
Absolutely.
Ezekiel Elliott was for New England. So
Miami, no.
no,
Buffalo,
yeah,
no. The Jets, no. The Patriots with Ramondre and no. Okay,
no.
I mean, the offensive line's really bad, so
The
it's
quarterback, like, you have
to be a
concerns.
question.
Like, they might not
So
be able to run because of
maybe
other aspects,
right. So
but
right now we have in each division, they in the AFC North and East, they have a possible one in each division. Okay. The Colts, no. The Titans, well, the Titans just got Tony Pollard, who you guys lost, so no.
right.
The Jags, no. The Texans added Joe Mixon, so no. Let's move over. The Chiefs, no. The Raiders, who's the Raiders?
Zamir White.
Zamir White. I'm taking Zamir White by a
I was
fucking
taking
leg.
Zamir White too.
I don't care. The Broncos, maybe so you have a couple maybes in the West. Broncos and
Yeah.
the Chargers, maybe. Eagles, no. Giants, who they have? Devin Singletary right now.
I would still take him over Zeke,
I
man. I would.
would. The Commanders, I'm taking Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. I'm taking
And Austin Eckler.
the Lions, no. The Bears with Swift, no. Josh Jacobs and the Packers, no.
Not a
Aaron
chance.
Jones went to the Vikings, no.
No.
Kamara and the Saints, no. Bijan and the
White.
Falcons, no.
Yeah.
Rashad White, no. The
Who's
Panthers,
Carolina?
maybe.
Are they
Chuba,
Chuba Hubbard?
The Seattle, no. Kyron Williams and the Rams, no. The Niners, no. The James Conner and the Cardinals, no. Dude, you are looking at, if they're lucky, the 26th best rushing offense in football.
Yeah, that's being modest.
Like,
as
if they're lucky, they beat out
giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Teams. Yeah, if they're lucky.
Yeah, like Dalvin Cook, like.
Oh, I mean, that would have been sick fucking 7 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, man. So I'm with you, man. The Cowboys are interesting. I think they still end up second in the division just by default, in a sense. But I do look at this year. I think one of the big pillars for me this year for the Eagles is beating the Dallas Cowboys twice. It's not the end of the world, but they should.
I'm not trying to like give them applause. I'm not trying to give them. I don't care if 2 people watch this and they can laugh at our rating. I do not care. I don't want to even give him a platform to one extra person. But go over everything we just said. And a man who has a national spotlight, his own show on national television, basically, in Nick Wright.
Yeah.
Picked, like you mentioned, oh, can the Commanders, be sneaky top 2? He had the Commanders finishing second in our division.
Yeah.
Except he picked the Cowboys to win it and the Eagles to come in third. Again, buddy, when you hear my hatred about certain topics, certain teams, certain quarterbacks, and my anger against what people, that's why. That's the asinine takes, the asinine thought processes and words that come out of actual dudes' mouths on national television. That's why I get so fired up and why I get so annoyed. Because what me and you just spent 35 minutes talking about this, and I know we're Eagles fans. But again, show me where you're coming up with this. The Washington Commanders are going to finish better than the Eagles, and the Cowboys are going to win the division with double-digit wins. Okay. All right. Like, whatever.
Like, double-digit wins. Like, that schedule I read to you from the Cowboys. Yeah. Double-digit wins. Is there 10 teams on that list that they're beating? So let's just say they sweep the Giants and the Commanders. That's 4 wins, right? Mm-hmm. So Saints. We'll take them out. You can have the Saints. That's 5. Panthers in Carolina. 6. That's 6.
And maybe the Bucs at home is 7.
Maybe the Bucs at home. Right.
If you split with the Eagles,
maybe Pittsburgh.
Let's just say they split with the Eagles. That's 8. And then maybe, like you said, they beat the Falcons or the Steelers or something. Like, you're not winning many more games.
Browns, the Browns with no Chubb.
Right. Like, you're realistically looking at like a 9-8, 10-7 type of season, and that's not winning you the fucking division.
Yeah, it's not. Barring injury, it's not.
Whatever.
Yeah.
With that said,
yeah,
we move on to the AFC East. our last division to break down for you guys before we go live tonight. So do yourselves a favor, do us a favor, subscribe to the Turf Talk YouTube channel. It's the best spot to get your thoughts and comments pulled up on the screen with us and be interactive with us. When we look at this division, similar to the division we just broke down, the NFC, they do have a bottom feeder at the bottom like we do with the Giants. The New England Patriots are an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
They draft Drake May. They're not starting him, even though he looked good in the preseason. They're starting Jacoby Brissett. Why? Because their offensive line and the rest of their offense is so putrid and so bad, they don't even want to expose their rookie quarterback to that mess and just hinder any type of development or progress that he might gather. They don't care about the experience. Jacoby Brissett's the starter. Their defense is a mess. Bill Belichick's gone. Who's their head coach again? Is it Gerard Mayo? Is that who's coaching?
Yeah, Mayo. Yeah, the former linebacker.
Okay. They're a mess, man. They are truly a mess. The New England Patriots are going to be a bottom 4 team in the National Football League this year. Definitely bottom 5 or 6.
I think that's what they want, though.
Yeah.
Probably they want to do that. They're trying to rebuild.
Right. Now we move on, and we have a cluster at the top here. Okay.
Yeah.
And these teams are all interesting in their own rights. You have a Miami Dolphins team who comes out in the beginning of the season every year under Mike McDaniels and Tua and Tyreek, and they look like a track beat, and they put up 40 to 50-plus points. They hung 70-plus on Denver last year early in the season. They're probably going to start out – I haven't looked at their schedule. They're probably going to start out like 4-1, 5-1, and they're playing in the warm weather, and it's going to look all fun, and it's sunshines and rainbows until late November and December hits, and they go on the road, and they try to win a division in New York or in Buffalo, and they come up short yet again. But nonetheless, Miami's going to be in the conversation. You have a New York Jets team who was one of the laughing stocks of the NFL again last year. Why? Because their beloved quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, who they brought over last year, tears his Achilles on the first 5 plays of the regular season action on Monday night last year against the Buffalo Bills at home at MetLife. He returns. A lot of lofty expectations for the Jets again with that defense. Breece Hall stays healthy. Garrett Wilson actually has a quarterback. We'll see what they can do. They bring in Mike Williams as a wide receiver 2 type of option. And then we get to the Bills, man. And why I think this division is so tricky is because it's been easy. Not easy, but even if Rodgers were there, I still think the Bills are kind of would be favored to win this division. However, Scotty, I'm not going to lie to you, man. I'm looking at this Bills team kind of in the same light I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys from this past offseason. And you've been passed by in previous years. And we can talk about Josh Allen and the turnovers. I've gotten on him plenty in the past, but I can still recognize he's a top 3 quarterback in the National Football League off of talent alone. It's not his fault, just like everybody else, that Patrick Mahomes plays in the AFC and beats everybody almost every year. However, you've been passed by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They hosted an AFC Championship game last year. You've been passed by the Cincinnati Bengals, who have beat Patrick Mahomes and gone on to a Super Bowl where they lost to the Rams. You have the New York Jets coming for you. You have the Miami Dolphins coming for you. You have the Houston Texans coming for you. And in this offseason, you traded away Stephon Diggs. You lost Gabe Davis, who I'm not the biggest fan of in the world anyway, but he was your wide receiver too. And in turn, you did nothing. Curtis Samuel, Mac Hollins, Khalil Shakir, MVS. I mean, I like the Keon Coleman draft pick, but he might not start right away. I don't know.
Wide receiver 1.
Right? You go over defensively. I mean, again, I'm not trying to sound like an absolute asshole, but DeMar Hamlin starting for this team again. Scotty, they did nothing but get worse on paper this offseason, and they were already starting to fall behind the 8 ball of trying to catch Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I am not of the belief that the Buffalo Bills win the AFC East this year.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting to hear you say that because I'm going to go in a different direction, and I did pick the Bills to win this year.
That's fine. They very well
don't disagree. I don't disagree with anything you said, honestly. I do. It's funny you compared them to the Cowboys because it is very similar what they did in a sense, although I think with the Bills, when I look at what they did, there's the Jordan Poyer, he's gone. Tre'Davious White is gone. Stephon Diggs is gone. Diggs is the one where you're like, that dude is not washed by any means.
No.
He's not over his hill, right? So that is the guy where you look at him, he's still a legitimate wide receiver 1 in my eyes. So that is a big loss. When I look at the defense, though, Tre'Davious White is just a guy that very seldomly is even there, right? Like, he's always injured. So you're sitting there relying on a guy. It might be better just to let that guy walk out the door than to sit here and, like, act like you can, have this guy locked in as your CB1. The Jordan Poyer, he goes down to Miami. That one's interesting. He was another guy that was injured last year, but maybe they just want to turn a page there. I guess the reason that I do look at the Bills differently than the Cowboys is because I just like Josh Allen more than I like Dak Prescott.
Sure.
And I'm
just talking organizationally, they did the same thing. They
did. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with you. And I think the thing with Josh Allen, it's just this weird feeling I'm getting. And a little precursor to our show later, Josh Allen is my favorite to win MVP this year as well, for similar reasons as to why I got them winning, is because I think it gives him like the freedom for it to be his team. He doesn't have to think about, I got to get Diggs the ball. No, he can just spread it out. He can run the ball whenever the hell he wants. You can fully ingrain James Cook in that offense. He's a very versatile running back. You got the 2 tight end sets with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox that you can implement. I'm wondering, this is going to be a very telling year to who Josh Allen is, right? I think that he can be this MVP caliber player without like a legitimate wide receiver 1. What does that mean? That means he's on some Patrick Mahomes-esque level stuff without a Travis Kelce, right? So I don't know. I do believe that there is some of that like takeover ability in Josh Allen that we could see this year, to where maybe he just has more freedom without like the egos in-house. And once again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's like a great day that you get rid of Stephon Diggs. That's dumb to say. It's not like that. I do just think when you take an ego out of the room and maybe Josh Allen was the guy that wanted to be the guy and he wanted to be the leader. Maybe that's why they cleared Diggs out of there and you completely let him run free. But I will say this, on the other side of the conversation, while I have the Bills winning the division, I feel comfortable riding with them. It also stems from my uncertainty in these other teams. Sure. And the other teams I'm talking about are the Jets and the Dolphins. I think on paper, the Jets are the best team in the division. I think they're the most talented. You add Aaron Rodgers to that offense. Breece Hall is a top 5 running back for my money. Garrett Wilson, we're going to find out if he's a top 10 receiver. Like, he has the potential. He looks like a top 15-ish wide receiver. There's a ton. I've said that like so many times in the last 2 shows. Like, how many fucking wide receivers?
Like, he's very, very close to top 10. He's in that 12, 13 kind of range.
He's like a Smitty, right? Like that type of tier. Right. I might put him a little bit lower. I like Smitty a little bit more, but I'm biased. Let's throw that comment out. I'm biased.
No. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't know. Like,
he is a wide receiver 1 for his team, though. To your point, like
Smitty was though. He's rookie year.
Got up to close to 1,000.
They're close, man. They're close.
But I guess my uncertainty is with Aaron Rodgers, man, and maybe it's not fair. He just is older, and like, is he gonna stay healthy all season?
I agree.
Is that gonna happen? If you believe that that's gonna happen, then I would pick the Jets to win this division. So
hand up. I'm going to go back on. I tried to predict it last year. Tears an Achilles 4 plays.
Not your fault.
My prediction was right down the shitter. Here's the thing that I have with Josh Allen, right? And you and I have had a lot of conversations about him over the years. I do agree. I do think there is a ceiling this year where he has a point to prove. We know that there was some sort of toxicity within that locker room and within his relationship with Stephon Diggs. Trevon Diggs, tweeting things and sharing things about number 17 and his brother's quarterback mid-season. So a lot had to have been going on. Diggs gets moved. Obviously, that comes for some sort of reason, right? Because I do think he's still a top 10 wide receiver in this league. But for Josh Allen, man, it's not only, can he do Patrick Mahomes-like stuff? I think he can. And to be fair, we did kind of shit on Mahomes' weapons outside of Kelsey, but dude, Allen's weapons are bad. Like
Yeah, they're
Curtis
worse than what Mahomes.
Khalil Shakir, and Mac Hollins are his
Yeah.
first three options. That's
People are
disgusting.
banking on Shakir like being this like revelation this year. Yeah.
Right. Like, no, what they need is like Keon Coleman to somehow be
a wide
and
receiver
be able
one
to start and be that kind of guy for them on the outside. If not, I just don't know how you overcome all of that. And the thing with Josh Allen, man, he can't be the reason they lose games anymore.
The turnover.
And I'm not talking about the AFC divisional round where he walked off the field with 15 seconds left with a lead, absolutely balled out, all that stuff. I'm talking, and it's not even just turnovers. I've seen quarterbacks struggle with turnovers. I've seen it with Jalen Hurts. I've seen it with Dak.
Yeah.
I've seen it with Allen himself. I've seen it. It's the time. And it wasn't even more. It was more so 2 years ago, I believe. We had a lot more of these conversations about him.
Yeah.
But it's just, what was it? The Minnesota? Do you remember the Minnesota game where he threw an interception late when they had a lead, and then Jefferson catches like the 4th and 20, and then Minnesota kind of wins, and then like 2 weeks later they're up, they're trying to just run the ball by their own goal line. He fumbles the snap. They get someone else recovers it.
Untimely.
It's and when those things happen, you become the reason. What was it? Was it against the Jets, or who was it against? I remember on primetime TV, either Sunday or Monday Night Football, dude, he threw like 3 interceptions in the first half.
Was it the opening night last year when they lost to the Jets?
I forget.
And Aaron Rodgers got injured?
I forget. I know the Jets.
How else did they lose that game if Aaron Rodgers was injured? You know what I mean?
No, the Jets won because they had the walk-off punt return, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember the Bills losing. I'm just thinking, how do you get to that point?
I don't. It might have been.
It might not have been. It might not have been. I'm not going to stamp that.
If you remember what I'm talking about, he literally had like a fumble and 2 or 3 interceptions in this game, and was like the reason they blew this game. And you can't be that, right?
Yeah.
Because all quarterbacks have off moments. They make a bad throw, they miss a read, they throw a turn. Patrick Mahomes just isn't the reason the Chiefs. And I know I'm setting the bar high with the best in the world, but he's not the reason. For the most part, Joe Burrow's not throwing 3 interceptions in a game and being the reason the Bengals lose, right?
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's not fumbling 3 or 4 times and being the reason the Ravens lose. You can't be that negative, that detractor.
Especially
and that's the part
now
where he has to evolve. And especially you got no one to bail you out, bro. Like that because that was the issue with him before, right? Always wanted a Superman cape on.
Yeah.
And you got to take it off sometimes. I mean, you're not Clark Kent this year, brother. Like Superman, the glasses are coming off. You need to be Superman this year.
And to your point, when you start to think about like Mahomes versus Allen and like what can Mahomes do that Allen can't? Why is Mahomes better than Allen? Obviously, aside from the winning, the rings, everything that's gone into Mahomes' career so far. But aside from that, just stepping on the field, talent-wise, what can't Allen do that Mahomes does? From talent. He's obviously a better runner than Mahomes is. He has the arm power. He can get the ball down the field. He can make any throw. It's the decision-making. And that's what separates. And that's for a lot of players in this league. There's a couple guys that are maybe just as talented with their arm as Mahomes.
For sure.
Maybe, guys like Stafford, they don't have the legs that Mahomes has, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Allen has the arm. He has the legs.
And here's the thing,
he just doesn't have it up here.
You know what argument I hate when it comes to like defending a Josh Allen or defending a Lamar Jackson from last year? It's like, well, no one can beat him. Like every quarterback has that issue. Well, guess what, bro? When Brady was running rampant, was anyone giving Peyton Manning excuses because Brady was out there? Was anyone giving Big Ben excuses? Was anyone giving Rivers, Breeze? And where those quarterbacks, those all-time great Hall of Fame quarterbacks, championship-winning quarterbacks, were they just getting the excuse that, oh, well, everybody loses to Brady, and so it doesn't really matter? No. You control what you can control, and they're beatable, right? So you have to step up at a certain point, and that's what Josh Allen needs to do. To your point, you have the Bills winning this division. I am going to roll the dice one last time on the New York Jets winning the AFC East. that fan base I know is starving for it. That's one
Yeah.
that's starving for it. That
Yeah.
organization is starving for it. And the reason I
They
say one
almost
last
deserve
time,
it.
right? The one last time, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's not even just that. It's, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers, if they don't win this division because Rodgers goes down at this point and it's for something serious, I mean,
He's
I don't
gotta
know how many
retire.
more. I don't know if Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers is coming back out to try to play for the New
Yeah.
York Jets again, bro. So for that,
Who's
it
their,
quite literally would be my last time picking him to win this division, probably.
don't
So
they have a better backup this year, though? Tyrod Taylor. So, I mean,
it is better.
he is
It's
better than
better.
Zach
It wasn't
Wilson,
bad.
for real.
So we'll
But
see.
it is interesting, man, because if Aaron Rodgers, these are just big ifs, but if he can stay healthy, I just love what their offense would look like. I mean, you talk about Breece Hall. I mentioned it earlier, top 5 running back. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Mike Williams, who can be wide receiver 2. You got Alan Lazard, who Aaron Rodgers is obviously familiar with. They got some young guys in here, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson. Looks like they're rookies. So rookies, you might get something out of them, you might not, but still a wild card there. And then the defense, right? The defense is where you really can hone it in and acknowledge that this is the best team on paper in this division because they are so much better than the next team defensively. And once again, if Aaron Rodgers can stay, that's just the biggest X factor in this division. If Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, they win this division because you obviously have Aaron Rodgers with all the arm talent in the world on the other side with that offense. But then you have the defense that's going to be able to lock things down. They have 2 shutdown corners. They have the front 7 that can get after you, so on and so forth. The linebacker play. They're a complete unit in reality. I think that's the only hesitation that comes with the Jets is Aaron Rodgers. Like, as a whole, like winning the Super Bowl. That's the only hesitation that comes along with the Jets, in my opinion, man, because Breece, oh my God, what is his name? Breece Hall. It's simple. Breece Hall is a different animal in that backfield. Like when you talk about when it gets cold outside and physical, just imposing your will on somebody, they have that type of running back in Breece Hall that
Thank
can
you. That's
just
my number
do
one
it
overall pick
all.
of fantasy from this year.
Yeah. I
Oh,
don't blame you, man. He can catch it.
not
He can
number
run
one,
it.
not number one overall. Just my
First round
pick.
pick.
I gotta
Yeah,
mention.
no, I feel you. He does it. He does it all. I mean, I looked at his numbers coming into the show just because obviously he's a top 10 back of mine. Didn't he clips 1,000 yards last year? I think that's just quarterback situation. A lot of attention on him. 591 receiving yards, 76 receptions. That's 76 fantasy points right there. 4 tutties, 7.8 yards per catch. So the receiving ability, the ability to bail your quarterback out, he's going to be right there. He's the perfect safety valve. 76 receptions again. PPR, that's 76 points. That's a great pick, brother. But yeah, he had 9 total touchdowns last year, 4.5 yards per carry. So he had good averages. He just, you can't probably playing from behind a lot of the time. You can't just pound the ball. But this year, I think they're going to be in situations where Aaron Rodgers can get him up early if he's healthy. Then you just pound the ball with Breece Hall the rest of the game, man. I'm not. That's the thing I wanted to make clear here with this division. I'm not shitting on the Jets, and I'm not shitting on them by taking the Bills. It's more or less, I just believe Josh Allen will be there. I believe that he will be healthy, and I believe he will have an MVP caliber season. But he could do that even getting second in this division. We didn't talk about the Dolphins at all, man.
I was just going to say that to you. That's the last thing I was going to bring up was, are we sleeping on, are we hating on, are we dissing this Miami Dolphins team, or are we just simply combining my thoughts for the Bills and your thoughts on the Jets and just combining those and going, seen this movie before, not buying into it, nothing new, whatever.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're a playoff team. Maybe they get the 6th or 7th spot in the AFC and they have to go on the road into a cold division or so. Maybe somewhere nice. Maybe they play in Houston in a dome and it's fun. I don't know. But we know what happens come December for this football team. It's the same movie on repeat year after year when it comes to Tua and this offense.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is for me. I would even go as far to say they got better this offseason, right? Like They added a Calais Campbell. They added a Jordan
Yeah.
Brooks at linebacker, Jordan Poyer from their rival Bills.
Uh-huh.
But Jordan Poyer's 33. Jalen Ramsey's a little bit older. These are all the things I'm looking at in that secondary right there. But it's just that I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. They could start fucking like 7-0 this season. Yep. And they're gonna end up somehow like 10-7 or 9-8, some shit like that. Like that's where I'm at with them. I have to see it to believe it. They have a ton of talent on the roster. Tua's got to stay healthy. Tyreek Hill's got to stay healthy. Mostert's got to stay healthy. So on and so forth. Is Devon Achane? Is he a chain? I don't know if I'm saying his name wrong or right there. But is he gonna be as good as he was last year? Last year he was a surprise. This year, what he's bringing to the table. You know what he presents. So it is going to be interesting. I think the reason I have the Dolphins coming in third, partly because I don't trust Tua to stay healthy or to play good in the cold. That's really what it comes down to.
I agree. I completely agree. All I had to say is there is a man on defense for the Miami Dolphins named Storm Duck. So I might – have to look into a DH gate order just for that. I mean, honestly, what the fuck? What, dude? What?
Storm Duck.
I swear to God, he's like a backup linebacker or something. I just saw it.
How did we not hear about this guy before?
Oh, he's a corner.
What
he's
a name.
He's a corner.
What
a
name.
Jalen Ramsey, Saran Neal, and then Storm Duck as their third string corner behind them.
Yeah, they let Xavier Howard go. He's still free agent.
That is crazy to me.
Picked up Kendall Fuller.
The thing I want to see before we wrap up here is their first couple of games, because I do feel like when you are talking about those early September games, October games, when it's nice down in Miami, they're scoring 70 on Denver. They're running up the score on teams. But I feel like their schedules have been pretty easy early on in the year outside of a game. I'm looking now, and again, it's kind of the same as we get into late October. I mean, look, they start with Jacksonville at home. It's not an easy game, but they're going to be favored. Then they get Buffalo at home. Regardless, it's basically in the summer for Miami. Still,
game you should win.
At Seattle, all right, it's
going to be tough.
Pretty difficult, but it's not the most difficult game you're ever going to play. Then they get the Titans, the Patriots, a bye, the Colts, and the Cardinals. And they get
all
the Raiders,
winnable games.
Patriots again,
but losable as well.
Right now, Scotty, here's where we find out the same movie again and again. November 28th, night game, Sunday Night Football. It looks like at Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. Then they come home to start December to play the Jets. Then they travel to Houston. Then they play the 49ers. Then they travel at Cleveland to take on the Browns on Sunday night. And then they wrap up the season at MetLife against the Jets in Week 18. That, my friend, is where the same ending of every movie for the Miami Dolphins comes into play. Couple games in cold weather, possibly some snow, some night games for Tua, all against probably playoff teams. That is where you will be told the story of the 2024 Miami Dolphins, okay?
Yeah. I was just counting how many wins I would give them up until that point, and it's so funny, man. I counted up to 7. So I'll tell you who I gave them wins against. I gave them wins against the Jags. I gave them a win against the Bills, so that's 2. Seahawks, L. Titans, I gave them a win, 3. Patriots, 4. One of the Colts Cardinals games.
By the way, they're 4-1 right now for you.
Right. So one of the Colts and Cardinals game. You got the Colts in Indy, you got the Cardinals at home. 5-2 at this point. Then you got the Bills in Buffalo. I counted that as a loss. Rams on the road, loss.
5-4.
Raiders,
win.
6.
Oh, yeah, 6-4.
And then you got the Patriots again. That's where I got to 7. And so it's not to say that they're only going to win 7 games. It's just once you get to that Packers game, like you said, this is the gauntlet that you have to get through in order to win your division. How are you going to get those last 4 wins in what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games?
Right. So even
So
if
you
they
need
were to
11
go,
wins to win the
even if
division?
they go that route, Scotty, even if they go 3-3, which over that stretch is pretty good for a lot of teams,
Yeah.
really,
It's
you're
10
still
and
10-7.
yeah.
Is that the 6th seed in the AFC? Maybe the 7th, like a 7th seed, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, because
You're
what? The
fighting out
Chiefs are gonna get
tiebreakers
12
versus
wins
teams.
this year. Chiefs are getting 12 wins this year. The thing that's tough in the AFC North is like how much are they going to beat up each other, right? Like because I could say the Ravens can get 12 wins this year, Browns
Yeah.
could get 10, the Bengals could get 10, 11. Like so, then you get down to Houston. We agree. We think Houston's going to win that division. Maybe they get to 11 wins, 12 wins as a team. Yeah. So I don't know. I think Miami to win this division even. What the Jets? The Jets should get the easiest schedule of the four, though, right? No, the Patriots do. The Jets will get the third easiest or the third hardest, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna. This is a very interesting division. So there's a lot of caveats here. Like,
There is.
are the Dolphins ever going to be what they're supposed to be talent wise? Can Aaron Rodgers stay healthy and can they be what they're supposed to
What
be?
does Josh Allen and company look like
What does
with
Josh
Wesley
Allen
Jackson?
playing Superman look like?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at
That's
here,
the
man.
division this year, man. With that said, guys, that is it. 8 for 8 for our divisional
Yes, sir.
breakdowns. 4 episodes in, over an hour each. They're all logged to our DSM NFL Turf Talk YouTube channel. So do yourselves a favor, subscribe to it, and we will
Yes,
be
sir.
live with you guys. By the time this is on right now, we will be live in about 30, 35 minutes with you guys. Breaking down tonight's matchup, our Super Bowl predictions, our MVP award, our player awards for this year, playoff matchups, everything to get into for tonight, man. So make sure to tap in, make sure to subscribe, and thank you guys for watching as always.
Thank you, everybody.